Hello and welcome to the Section 109 podcast, a Monday morning edition. Matthew is again dressed to the nines. I'm here with, obviously, Matthew, Sir Mix-a-Lot, Bobble Juan. Toby's actually curled up to my right side, which is kind of wild. And we are here to review a interesting game against a college team, Matthew. Before that, we love likes, comments, subscribes on any platform you are on. Reviews would make me really happy. I checked on Spotify, and we have some reviews on Spotify, which was cool. And also, there's video on Spotify. So, yeah, we're trying to grow as a podcast. So if you can put a like or comment, subscribe, whatever you can do there, it would make us happy. Matthew, take me through, number one, how are the vibes coming out of this game? And then number two, wherever you want to take us to start this review.
Vibes have not changed. It's preseason, and I am a mature adult.
No, you are certainly not. Neither am I.
Who doesn't ebb and flow with how preseason goes.
Since when?
Since this year. We're turning over a new leaf. Look, we had I thought it was a really good game, honestly. Beat UNC 1-0. And it really could have been more.
Yeah.
I thought I really, you're starting to see now the process really start to play out a little bit in terms of what type of opportunities are we trying to create for chances, and then like how we structure in the moments where we have a lot of possession in the attacking third. And like what type of structures are in place to keep possession, to rotate possession to the other side of the field. I thought we saw a lot of really, really good things from that game.
These Aldi LaCroix dupes are awesome.
Oh yeah.
I'm not like, yeah, you're welcome to try it if you want to try it. It's the grapefruit one. Grapefruit's always my favorite. Anyway, so I thought,
what comes from grapefruit? Malort.
Oh no. No, thank you.
That's not bad.
It's pretty good. As far as the dupes go, I think it's really good. I'll be buying that when I see it at Aldi. Anyway, going to past years and how we've played sometimes against college teams, which are many times very organized. I know this is the spring season. You can correct me if I'm wrong. They're in season, right?
Define in
don't
season.
They have like a weird spring season, right? That doesn't count for much. That isn't their main season, but they still play.
The spring season does not count for literally anything. The spring season exists as an opportunity for 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it actually is, for college teams to get their players on the field again. Mm-hmm. So like, do they have their freshmen? No, their freshmen are still in high school. Do they have their transfers yet? Sometimes, not all the time.
Sure.
If you've graduated players, like they're not with you. The players that were drafted, like those guys are gone. Like, the spring season just exists to like help teams start to rebuild from losing usually it's you losing your senior class. This year with the days with the portal, like it's a little bit weird. But it's just like kind of mostly the remainder group.
But they're playing some games right now, right?
They're playing
I realize
some
they don't
games.
like quote unquote count for like, NCAA stuff necessarily, but they're playing some games right now, right?
They're playing some games. But like it's not like a long it's like 6 games. Like that's it.
And it's not their seniors and their players that have been drafted. So it's not their best, but it may, and it's not necessarily their transfers, but it is some of the players potentially that will be getting minutes for their team. I mean, they had to have had close to 30 guys here, 25 guys. Like they had like what looked like a full roster to me of at least bodies. And the reason I say that is like we have done this spring thing a couple times, and it has at times gone poorly for us because like a team is really organized, a team is really up for it, and we're not. And did I see some business decisions made in this where people were like, I don't want to get hurt? Yes, I did. Was there a lack of intensity at times? And at some point during this episode, I will put in a quote or two from Chris, and I think he might also see that from the postgame interview.
And tactically, how did you sort of see the match play out?
I
felt in the first half we started slow. It took us a little bit of time just to identify how they were pressing and identify the shape. But when we did that, we had some really good moments. We were able to play through them and get into the attacking zone. I felt we were a little bit too casual, probably too casual in a lot of places. Definitely too casual in the attacking third in the first half. I think with a little bit more cleanliness, we could have maybe scored a couple more, which makes the second half very different. They adapted and pressed a lot higher in the second half, and I felt we were still trying to build too much when we should have gone through or over them a bit quicker. I mean, you have to give them a lot of credit. They adapted. They made it very difficult. They've got some very good players. They're a high-level team, and I think we didn't make the adjustments we needed to be successful in that moment, which is part of preseason and part of it. However, I would like to see us just be a little bit more adaptable in those situations.
But I'm also not mad about it because we won. We saw some good evolution, and like you said, of attacking kind of, especially, but also like defensively. And we really didn't let them have much. They had some moments that they created a few things, including like the first 5 seconds of the game where they had like that through ball that he was offside. But in general, like that's a good team with talented players overall that's going to be really up for playing a pro team. And our talent really shone through, I think. We won the vast majority of the one-on-one duels, even if the guys weren't trying as hard as maybe like they would be, pulling out of tackles, whatever else. Alex McGrath excluded, who cannot pull out of a tackle. It's my favorite. But I'm really enthused, I should say. My vibes are also high from this. Also, I will say, I think one of the things I said I hoped to see was Alex McGrath back in this midfield because I feel like we really needed him back. It was exactly what I wanted to see. He was absolutely everywhere. Shout out Bill Hammontree, who was like, during the game, was like, is Alex always, am I right? I just haven't seen him play in a couple games. Is he always everywhere? Because he is that's literally everywhere.
That's the feature.
That is the Alex McGrath experience. But he was immense. And a lot of players were good, but he was just absolutely everywhere. And it was just good to have old captain back. And we saw for the first time this preseason that we've been able to see Alex and Callum starting from the beginning. And we saw Nick as well. So we had our most senior, let's call it, like our 3 older guys starting 24, 26, and 27, I think. Is Alex 27?
I don't remember.
Anyway, so like, but the point being is like we have some younger players. We have a guy straight out of college in Mangarov that will potentially play some minutes this year and will be younger. He's 22, 23. You have Darwin, who's 18. You have Stevie, who's 20. Like you have some younger guys who can definitely play and maybe starters at some point. But this was a little bit more of a veteran group, and it was just interesting to see them play together. And I was very happy with how they played.
Yeah, the thing with college teams and playing college teams is, number one, they don't actually count for any official counting stats. That's not how we do things, because we can never play them in an official competition, unlike any club team that we conceivably could. But the other thing that I remember is like the college game and the pro game are different games entirely. So like if you were paying attention, the UNC sub patterns were often.
And they also did go in and out. I don't know how many players went in and out, but their right back, who at one point took a little knock and had to get I think he was maybe bleeding from I don't know what happened, but he had a little bit of blood or whatever. They were cleaning him, and they put a sub in, and he was I saw him visibly angry. So I thought maybe he was going to be out of the game. They weren't going to do in and outs, and then he was back in later. So they were very clearly, at least some of the time, doing in and outs, which in college soccer is a thing where you can sub in and out in the first half, right? And then the second half, you're just, once you sub out, you're out.
I think you're given one in and out. And oftentimes the way they do it is you play a portion of the first half, you get subbed out, you sub back in at halftime. And then once you sub out in the second half, you're out.
Gotcha. Which is just not to the laws of soccer, and they should change that. It's really stupid. But it is what we were playing against in that game. It is how college soccer works. At least the clock wasn't counting backwards.
It produces a different game.
Well, and it produced a different challenge for us where they had a lot more fresh legs.
You're constantly fresher. The intensity in a college soccer game is especially UNC is a great program. ACC is really, really tough conference. The intensity is so much higher. So you get the constant pressing, the constant back and forth.
And then we really felt that in the second half in particular.
And it's a physical challenge, and it's one of the reasons why adapting college players to the pros is a bit of a crapshoot. You don't know how players are necessarily going to adjust to an incredibly different game. But in this context, it produces a really good challenge because, again, UNC, good program. Fresh legs pretty much all the time. We didn't have that luxury, especially when we didn't really make a lot of subs in this game, and that's intentional.
I was going to come to that. Go ahead.
So, what we're doing at this stage, there's one preseason game left before the regular season opener on March 8th.
Well, there were two, it turns out.
What?
We'll get to that in a minute.
So, a scheduled game.
Yeah.
So you need you need the group of players to go as many minutes as possible to get as close to being 90-minute match fit as possible.
Yeah, I mean, they got 2 weeks left. Like, they needed to get close to 90 in this game.
And so, like, that was accomplished for much of the group. There was a second game played on Sunday.
A scrimmage.
Yeah, very, very scrimmagey against a local, I don't know, UPSL team or something like that.
Yeah, we don't know who. We know it was a local amateur team for the guys who didn't get a lot of minutes last night.
And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the local amateur scene, there's like 17 of them now.
That's pretty cool.
So it kind of rules. So like there was another minutes getting exercise on Sunday, like the next day. And so some of the guys who did not feature at all, or maybe featured for like 5 minutes at the end, like a Darwin. I'm just guessing. I don't know, but like I imagine they went and played that whole next game, so that everyone had an opportunity to get minutes in their legs.
Yeah, very important.
And that's very important and necessary in the preseason process.
I mean, it's why you saw a lot of guys go 90. Like Fareed went 90 and it's his second 90. Eldon went 90. Like the only subs we made were like towards the end, and they were guys like Alex had to be on some sort of minutes restriction correctly because he came into camp late with that minor injury that he had that he was recovering from or whatever. And so like it wasn't a surprise to see him get subbed out. But what, he got subbed out 20 minutes for the end, 15 minutes for the end? It wasn't like the 60th minute or anything, was it?
It wasn't that early, yeah.
I think it was like the 75th minute or something.
Around there.
So I think you really saw in the second half, we were tired a little bit, which is normal. It's preseason. We were playing against guys who were in and out, so they are also in season. So I expect that they are in pretty decent shape.
I don't know. I think this might have been their first spring season game.
Oh, gotcha. Interesting. But anyway, I thought the test was good.
I don't know how long college teams are allowed before they start playing games
to start
in the spring season. I don't know how long they get
totally
to start doing stuff.
Anybody stand out to you as good performers that you were like, oh, so and so had a good game?
I continue to be impressed with how involved Keegan Anselin is.
Agreed.
In the overall game. That's not just being a number 9, doing number 9 shit. Like that's also, being a willing runner in behind. That's being a willing hold up man. That's, combining with teammates. That's, coming back defensively to help out. Like for a guy who's 21 and he'll turn 22, I think next month, first pro preseason, like that's been extremely good to see because now with the arrival of Peter Plowman into market,
whenever he arrives,
I think he's supposed to be in. I think he's supposed to be here already by recording time. With that arrival, like that can give us like 3 legitimate options.
Mm-hmm. It's big.
At the 9 with those 2 in Marcus. Like that's massively important. And those are all very different players.
Exactly.
Which allows for multiple looks, multiple options. It's not just, you have to play one singular 9. Like you can play with 2. You can.
And we saw us play with 2.
We saw Keegan play as a left wing option.
Well, we were something you and I were wondering
late.
I think off podcast was like with Jalen out, like who's our backup winger? And who's that fourth winger? Like, and we saw that is Keegan going to be an option out wide? I don't know, but he certainly played some minutes out wide in that game, which I thought was interesting. I thought Keegan stood out massively, absolutely. Another player that stood out to me was Callum. He played, and it's against a college team, so I guess you got to grade a little bit on a curve. But there's that thing that I've been saying to you and saying I think I said on this podcast several times, like if Callum can play I definitely said it on this podcast. If Callum can play average 1 or 2 of those like just game breaking balls A la Ian Cerro, a la him last year against Philly, Callum last year against Philly, where he really tore them up. Like, if he can get one or two, especially two of those a game, where he can play into space, or he had two in this game, 2 or 3 really good balls. One is just barely offside. One, the ball goes out of bounds by just, he almost gets to it. And the other one, like, it's just a good save or whatever that happens. So, or a good block or something that happens. Like, it was good to see, and they were early. Almost every one of them was early. It's like a first time, like turnover, drop back play, or turnover play. And if we're going to play in transition, like Callum pulling those strings, it's good shit.
The early ball in behind like that is so beneficial against teams that are not just always going to sit in.
Yes.
Because you're not talking about like, Ian Cerro is really good at like trying to find that final ball, unlocking a really packed in defense, right?
Yes.
Teams in this league are not going to be packed in that often. And so if we can get a ball in space where they're still out a little bit from their own box, that ball in behind provides enough space to beat the defender, but also like not enough room for the goalkeeper to really always be out. And if you've got a guy like Keegan who can get in behind, if you have a guy like Peter who can get in behind, those are big scoring opportunities.
Well, and to wingers too.
Absolutely.
Amzian is the other player that stood out to me a lot in this game. Is not everything he tries comes off, but boy, does he try shit. His try shit TM factor is high and good and fun. And he tried some dummies. He tried some flips over the top. He tried some dribbles. He tried some shots. He tried some passes that almost came off. It was awesome. And he is going to be, I think, maybe for the neutral or maybe the casual watcher that isn't maybe as dialed in as you and I are, or that maybe some of the listeners of this podcast are, he may be a frustrating player to watch at times because he does try shit a lot and it doesn't always come off. But I think he's going to be one of those players that like he tries shit for 6 times in a row and like he gets the ball taken away maybe 4 or 5 times. And then one of the times he creates a goal completely by himself, or he taps it in because he pops up because he did something that somebody wasn't expecting. And I think that's the mark of a very interesting and also a very good player. He's still young. It's still a preseason. There's no guarantees here, but I like what I've seen from him, especially creativity-wise, because he adds a layer of unpredictability that we haven't had in quite a while. Actually, somebody you compared him to earlier when we were talking about him.
He appears to have no fear. He's not worried about who you are, what you've ever done in the game before,
or if you're going to try to kick him.
Like he's
unconcerned.
He's just going to try to go by you. And there were some times I think the thing to watch with Amzi is going to be his decision making, because it's clear that he has physical tools. It is clear that he has the technical tools. So often, to really translate your game at this kind of level and to go to another level, it's pure decision making. When do you cut inside on the dribble? When you're a left-footed player playing on the right-hand side, do you fake like you're cutting inside and then drag the ball down the line to create a pocket of space for a cutback? When do you play an early first-time ball with your right foot instead of cutting inside because you've got 2 different runners as options that you can play and catch the defense out on? Those are little things. But almost everything in this game is decision making, and it's preseason and learning. Even when you make the wrong decision, that's okay. Like that's part of it. Like you're gonna see something differently every single time, and then you'll get to look back on video and say, okay, did I make the right decision there? Could I have made? Was that a good decision that I made, but was there a better one available?
Well, there's a moment where the ball gets passed to him and he's on the wing. First of all, we saw some patterns of play where we ran a lot of balls through him, a lot of the game through him in that first half. Him and Callum were kind of like running the possession going forward through that side quite a bit. But there's a play where like the ball gets played to him and he looks for everyone's money like he's going to receive the ball, and then he dummies it at the last possible second, and Alex slows up his run because he thinks he's going to pick up the ball. That's one of those things too as time goes on that we may see like he makes really unpredictable decisions sometimes in a really good way, because if Alex is on his horse like he was right before that and he gets that ball, like there's a chance he's like now a full step ahead of the whole defense. Because Amzi made a very unpredictable play in a good way, like a decision that nobody expected. And so that's the thing I'm excited about. Like, who knows what happens with it, but he can do some things, and he chooses to do some things that we haven't seen since, I think you said Taylor Gray in like 2023.
That first few game stretch of Taylor Gray in 2023 was unreal.
Yeah. Before he got hurt.
Yeah.
And so also shout out Taylor Gray, who was at the game this weekend.
Yeah.
Got to say hello. He was, so good to see him. Big best of luck to him and JP and Tully in Statesboro this year.
Absolutely.
You want to go to the lineups?
Yeah. So,
lineup. I don't really care about theirs.
Eldon, Ekupovic, at goalkeeper, you had Milo, Ethan Dudley, Fareed, Tate Robertson. Your midfield, as mentioned before, was Nick Mendonça, Callum Watson, Alex McGrath. By the way, in case you're curious, Alex is 27. Nick just turned 24 earlier this month. And Callum Watson will turn 25 later this week.
Love
I think
that.
on Friday.
3 guys who should be very much in their physical and potentially prime. Not to say they can't continue to get better. You can continue to get sharper, but like these are guys who we should carry a certain level throughout the season.
Then you've got Amzi, Jesus Ibarra, and Keegan Anslin. Were your starters?
Jesus getting his first start of the season. Mendonça getting his 3rd straight, I think. Still a preseason, and then Dudley getting his 2nd straight. So interesting. There's some patterns starting to emerge there. We'll see when the regular season starts. That's when it starts to really matter. But we're getting a little more settled team. Something Chris said in that post-game thing, which check the link in the description for the actual full-length deal. But he said, like, we're getting close to having our starting lineup together, and we have some, like, there's a couple positions where we have, like, 2 guys who are kind of competing for it. We have 2 starting-level guys, and, we're working to figure that out, but we're getting close. So I think that's very interesting, and, it'll be fun to do a little guess who starts against Miami if we end up podcasting after Tempo.
Yeah, and we may not as a general. Next week becomes my week from hell.
Yeah.
Where yeah. So I'll be
where you're going to be in all the states dressed like this.
I'll be in all the states dressed like this all at the same time, which will be super super fun. And then so we really may not podcast again until after the Miami season opener.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'd like to do a season preview type thing.
Me too.
Like more generally, like we've done in the past. But also sometimes with this league, we don't actually know who's on the other teams until
we might
match day 1.
We might just do the season preview before the first home game or after the first home game.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's a long season. There's nothing wrong with if we can't fit it in schedule wise, and also we don't have our full roster yet. You and I both believe we were a center back and a left back short. So like. Yeah, we'll see kind of what comes.
There's
a
nice little gap after the Open Cup. We go those first 2 games, the 8th and 15th. Then we have the Open Cup game, and then that weekend afterwards is the international break.
That might be the move.
So maybe around
there.
Maybe around then. 3 games in.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I think we'll aim for that. Well, Matthew, where do you want to take us now?
Let's
talk about the goal.
Speaking of goals, you got the goal today. Can you give us your view of the goal?
It's just obviously a set piece. We kind of work a ton of those. Chris and Liam and Adam drill those into us. We just a set piece from the training ground. Work on it a lot, and lucky to hit the shot and score a goal and help the team any way I can.
And what will be the priorities in these last 2 weeks of preseason?
Keep good habits every day, training, carry those into games. Obviously, the guys that didn't get on today have a game tomorrow. That's important to stay sharp for them, and obviously we can't do it with 1, 2, 3 players. It's a collective 24, however many players we have signed. Sharpness every day. It doesn't matter who you play on the weekend. You have to bring it. Everyone wants to win, and I mean. The competitiveness is there, but I think sharpness, regardless of who you're playing, is we need to keep that going until we get to March 8th in Miami.
Let's talk about the goal, because it comes on a set piece.
Have you rewatched?
A couple times. Only from the angle that was posted on social media.
I watched it. I've only seen the angle from the stream.
So this is, if you were wondering, and I think folks will have seen this now through some of these preseason games.
Hold on, I'm going to insert right here the clip of Chris talking about the goal.
And talk us through the goal. We know you work a lot on set pieces and training. So how did you see the goal play out?
Yeah, it was good. I think we tried to create an overload around the ball. I would say we probably made one or two too many passes in that situation. But some of it is more of getting the ball in play and disrupting their defensive setup or taking advantage of it before they get back to open play. So there was some good creativity. It wasn't the starting positions was a set structure. The decisions in there was free, and that's kind of what we want to see. You put the guys in positions where they can decide to make certain plays or make certain movements, and we saw that with Tate. The positioning was good, his timing was good, his body shape was good to get him in, and the finish was excellent as well. Really good strike, so that's a positive.
Okay, now you talk about the goal.
If you were wondering, if with Rod's departure, if we were going to do short set pieces, and do little fun stuff, and be frustrating and sometimes excellent at the same time,
That might have been turned up to 12.
At least in this particular moment, like the short set pieces are sticking around, and Chris has kind of explained in both times we've had him on the podcast, his thoughts on them. But like this is very much like still a thing.
This is a feature, not a bug, as we always say.
Yeah, and
we don't have Tolley to aim at right now, and I truly believe that last year, I mean, you and I were surprised to see us go more direct, more like for the header, a little more often. And when we were in, we're like, oh shit, we're going for a little bit. I truly think personnel is policy, as you always say, and I think having Tolley was a big part of that.
I will note that we showed multiple different looks in that game this weekend. Like we did take some long corners.
I don't think we will be a monolith, by the way, of only doing one thing. I'm just saying, I think last year, Tolley in particular pushed us because you had to, even if you're not aiming at Tolley, you have a bunch of guys that then need
you
to
were
key
looking
on
at
Tolley.
Duvan, you were looking at Jude when he was in. Like
Yes.
there were a lot of,
But you're also looking at Tolley, Medi too. But like you're looking at Tolley, and there's like two guys keying on him probably, and then you have other guys who are open. So I think we went. It'll be interesting how things develop. As far as Peter Plowman's highlights, it certainly looks like he's pretty good in the air and pretty attacks balls in space and whatever else. So it'll be interesting to see what we do. But we, on a lot of free kicks in particular, we went short.
yeah, and what it did when it worked is it got the opportunity both to play across or to play on the ground just at a little bit better of an angle. Like that free kick comes, a little bit closer to the sideline. And that intricate play allowed the ball to progress a little bit closer to the box. So when Tate sits in that little pocket and there's no rotation over,
And they miss him on the first pass.
Yeah.
But he does such a good job to drift back, stay on side,
and then
stay open.
and then they don't when they don't close him down, then Alex is just able to like slide the ball down for Tate, and it's just one-on-one with the keeper at that point.
And he tried to kill that
and
poor kid.
He's got the option there. He can square it back across into traffic. Like maybe you get a tap in, maybe you get an own goal, like the corridor of uncertainty type stuff. But he's also got like a one-on-one angle with the keeper, and that keeper does not have the post covered.
He tried to kill that
he's
keeper.
in the middle, like it's a one-on-one chance. Like it's a really great play to recognize where the danger is and how to take advantage of it. That's a danger for them.
It's the perfect amount of selfishness from Tate there too.
Yeah, and he spots a little gap and just rifles that thing, and it deflects. It's almost a save.
it caroms off his shoulder, but it's hit so hard and it's rising that he would have
and
to.
his shoulder, like for people on video, like it's kind of like out like this, so it's only deflecting upwards and not like a full on potential for a block.
Yes, and so like it would have been a very good, like he would have had to have his body angled a little bit more forward for that to bounce off his chest. And look, when we play better keepers, like maybe they do a better job, but like he's blasting it from close. That is what happens. You'll see that goal in the Prem all over the, like if somebody gets one-on-one and smashes it off the keeper,
sometimes it's just
sometimes the ball just goes in. Like that's what you in that moment, had he squared it, I would have been a little annoyed. Because like he has the space, like you said, he's not covering the post, and Tate just recognizes it and smashes it.
You've got options there. You go for the like right above the shoulders because it's so hard to get hands over.
Yes, well, and because he's got his hand down trying to block all the space down below.
Right, you can 5-hole the keeper there. You can go for that little like it's like when you do hockey. When you do hockey, like clearly I'm a hockey.
We
doer.
hockey.
But like you've got, your options oftentimes are like, can you go 5-hole? Can you go directly above the
pad.
the leg pad things, or can you go like right above the shoulders so that like they have to whatever? And like that's a pretty classic example there. A really nice finish, and that's the one we're going to talk about because it's the one that went in. We created a bunch of others.
Oh, Keegan's so unlucky to not score
Not
that
have like
one-on-one.
3.
He's one-on-one with the keeper, and he shoots it, and the keeper like extends his hand, and it just bounces perfectly at whatever else. But yeah, I was pleased. The one thing we had against Knoxville is we were like the final pass away from creating chances. And
this one we were much more like the finish away.
Yes, correct. And that's a nice bit of, granted, UNC is not as good as Knoxville. UNC is younger players, and they're not as good as Knoxville. But I do think I saw some growth a little bit in our patterns and our persistence and our sharpness.
It honestly, like, it measures up. It measures up a little bit more like a typical Next Pro game. Whereas, like, Knoxville has fewer players that can just do complete magic and burn you by themselves. Or, like, 2 players combined for magic. Right? Like Knoxville and other typical, like, pro teams, especially in League One, like they've got some good players. They've a little bit of magic can happen, but ordinarily, like, the team structure is going to have to be a little bit better. UNC, a bit younger group than some of the pro teams that we've played so far. And that comes with a little bit of boom and bust. And we're going to see that potential, the boom and bust nature of Next Pro, a little bit more, and so it's on us. Whereas last year we didn't take advantage of it nearly enough.
Mm-hmm. No,
to our complete missing
detriment.
the playoffs detriment.
Mm-hmm.
This year, can we take advantage of the low moments or the times where a player switches off?
Exactly.
And that's not just a young players thing, but like, the potential for that happening is a little bit greater. Can we force them into making a wrong decision because we've created an overload somewhere? Stuff like that.
Now, we've probably only got about 5 minutes left, I think. So one place I want to point you and see if you want to go this direction. Something you said in the, it's clipped out somewhere, is that this season we're going to see if we can be a little bit more take what the defense gives you, and because there's going to be some naive defending, because there's going to be some focus on development and not just on like preserving the goal difference and bunkering in, are we going to, in space, take advantage of those moments, play over the top, take what the defense gives us? I do think in this game you saw it a little bit, and you also heard it in Chris's post game where he said we didn't take advantage of the press like we should have, this, that, and the other. So I'm curious what your thoughts are, if you remain the same, if you remain more optimistic, less optimistic. Like, how are you feeling about our ability to kind of take advantage of what's going to be given to us and be more flexible in our, be more flexible and just exploit the other team's weaknesses for what they are in the regular season?
Ask me in April. I am not going to judge the process as we build through preseason. Like, we're a team that wants to keep possession, right? We're no longer a team that truly wants possession for possession's sake, but we want a ball. We want the ball. We want to be able to do things with it. We don't have to have the ball. is maybe the biggest differentiator between 2024 and 2025. So is it a surprise that we tried to build from the back even against a press? No. I think Chris's comments in the press conference were like, okay, like we were trying to build, but at a certain point you need to release that ball earlier. You need to go in behind a little earlier over the top. Like you've got a 6'4" guy, like at the 9, like can we aim for that guy and connect that to the 9 and then down back to the 10, and then can we play out from there? You know, were we slow to make those decisions? Why were we slow to make those decisions? Were we, you know, playing a little bit down because it was a college team and we weren't at whatever it was? Were we tired in the second half against much fresher legs? I'm sure that also led into it. Ask me again in April about how I feel we're progressing, because only until you play games against teams in your league will we have a better idea for how that process is played out.
Cool. Anything left? What are we expecting from Tennessee Tempo?
A Poku sighting? Like,
You think he'll play or just coach?
he's kind of been playing, but he's also like old now, so we'll see.
I wonder if we'll see Bongo.
Maybe
That would rule.
that would rule. So Tennessee Tempo, 7:30 p.m. Friday, February 28th.
Is it 7 or 7:30?
7:30.
Okay. I was genuinely asking because
It is
we're going to
the-
be at Naked River pregame. If anybody
The
wants coming out.
season ticket holders only match. So get your season tickets. Hopefully the weather's going to be nice. Come on out. Last preseason game. March 15 is the home opener against Huntsville. That's a big game. Huntsville is massively retooled. Nashville, the entire Nashville organization, top to bottom, has been retooled. But Huntsville's going to be very, very different looking than they were. And
Our boy Forster Ajago has been starting for Real Salt Lake.
yeah, he had 2 starts, one in Champions League and one in. I'm pretty sure he started. I was starting to fall asleep.
You sent me a screenshot of him starting.
He
in whatever
was
game.
starting. Okay, good.
You sent me a screenshot because that's our boy
Yeah.
who's never played for us and doesn't know who we are. But man,
RSL are in a little bit of trouble right now, and we'll have to figure out their way out of it. But that new look Bruce Arena side in San Jose, woohoo!
bad or good?
Good. They won 4-0.
Of course they're good. It's Bruce Arena.
The
He's very good at MLS.
one thing I was actually watching, and then this is
Yes.
completely a side note, and we can get out of here. One thing I was watching last night.
Also, your MLS codes are in your inbox.
Yes, if you have an MLS code, it's in your inbox. Get your Apple TV so you can watch CFC
Yes.
on the road, and if you can't make it to the stadium, but also like watch some other stuff because it's there and it's fun.
Just watch CFC. Nothing else exists.
So I was watching the San Diego LA Galaxy game last night,
Of course you were.
and because like it's the defending champions at home, where they didn't lose at all in 2024 at home against an MLS expansion side that is building like this really particular style of play that they want, like more than anything they want. And I was curious how it was going to look, and San Diego ended up winning 2-0, by the way.
Awesome.
And was the
Spoilers.
better and was the better team. But what's interesting is like the way they were trying to create chances, like in like that kind of that vertical style, whether it was from the wingers, but more often from Luca Della Torre at the 10, like trying to play like kind of that vertical stuff in behind. Yeah. Yep. I said that. Yep. It was really, really interesting. And it reminded me a lot of what CFC so far this preseason under Chris has been trying to do, creating those kind of like transitional moments, like in possession, in attack, but also like, can we recognize the space in between the goalkeeper and the center backs and play a ball into that space and run on for that kind of ball? There was some interesting stuff there. That's not how they scored their 2 goals, but it was a really interesting kind of thing to pay attention to.
Cool. Yeah, so anybody that wants to come find us Saturday night, I will be at the pregame in some way, shape, or form.
Friday night,
What did I say?
Saturday night.
Jeez, Friday night. I'll be at the pregame at some point at Naked River. Come say hello. Come find us in 109. We'll be hanging out there. And yeah, can't wait to see the last preseason game and then on to the regular season. I cannot fucking wait. Catch up with you guys soon. Peace.